On this episode of El Tigre del Caribe, we take a break from the boat and the marina, and we get a nice and early start because today we're going to be heading up into the mountains of Puerto Rico to check out my buddy Gustavo's coffee and coconut farm. After a couple of cups of strong espresso to get us going, we jumped in the car and started on what was about an hour and a half ride from San Juan up into the mountains of Puerto Rico to the town of Morovis, which is located in the central region of the island. It was formed over 200 years ago in 1817, and with about 31,000 residents, Morovis has many historic landmarks like this abandoned castle, the famous Red Bridge, Puente Colorado, and no shortage of picturesque mountain and valley views all around town. All right, in Morovis, Puerto Rico, heading up to a farm, a place called Fresi. Stop and get a little grubbage. All right, little open air places like this are called chinchorros. It's like a little, kind of like a public, like a bar that also has food. You can see they have taquitos, empanadillas, pastelillos. Some of the best food, best people you can find on the island. All right, got my pastelillo, empanada, carne queso, meat and cheese. Let's see how it is. Delicious. Nice little seating area. Beautiful view of the valley here. Wow, that. So Gustavo and I continue our journey up the mountain toward the farm, but first he wanted to make a stop at a local general store to pick up some supplies for the farm, as well as some beers for the guys working there. So Gustavo had prepared me to visit this little tienda, as they call it. It's a local general store. And basically, the guy has anything you can think of. Anything you ask him, he goes in the back and he finds it. It's kind of like a Sam's Club that you can drink at. So at long last, we arrived at the farm, and one of the first things I noticed was all the dwarf coconut trees that Gustavo had been telling me about that he was growing. These trees require a lot of water because, of course, they grow coconuts, which produce delicious coconut water. One cool thing about this property is that there's a natural spring that runs down through this piping, fills up that cistern, and of course attached to spigots and things, and basically get an endless free supply of spring water that's used to irrigate all the coconut trees and coffee plants and everything, in addition to the rainwater. So we started walking around the farm, and one of the first things that Gustavo showed me was his chicken coop. And he's explaining the difference between the local chickens from Puerto Rico and the ones that he imports from back in the States, the different kind of eggs they produce, and of course, which chickens are best for cockfighting, which is a popular sport in Puerto Rico.
They take a long time to sit on the eggs to decide to do that, but the local chickens, like those guys, they'll do it faster, and then you can take the eggs from these guys and put it into these guys, and then you'll get that. Usually the local chickens would be like maybe 3-4 eggs. Those really good prized cockfighting type chickens, they don't make a lot of eggs.
They're just tough guys. So we continue along the tour, and eventually I got to see some of the coconuts actually growing on the different types of coconut trees that he grew on the farm.
This is a dwarf one. These are the dwarfs that I'm bringing up.
Yeah.
And those are Caribbean. They're tall. This guy had been totally hammered by those vines that climb on them. And see, there's still like one there that's trying to get back up on him.
Yep.
But I'll have these guys clean him off. And he was like This guy was like that guy over there. So,
Oh wow.
you know, he can't have a life that way.
Right.
See, no coconuts, no nothing. Over there, it's just, you know,
Overrun with
getting
bodies.
bullied.
Yep.
So we're gonna fix him up. And then this guy is a tall one. And this one is called the Filipino. This is a yellow one. A yellow. And the ones that we're gonna be having are gonna be shorter than this guy, but it's this same style of coconut. So
Okay.
you see, this one's
Are these
pretty
dwarfs
healthy.
up here?
Huh?
Are these dwarfs?
This one's a dwarf, but not the dwarf that we're looking at.
Okay.
This guy is gonna keep growing
Yeah.
on me, and I want him to like not grow more than this, and then start doing that like that. Those coconuts, they have a ton of water. We'll have one of those later on.
Okay.
So up to that mountain to where you see the tree line over there,
Mm-hmm.
and then down there's a river, and then this goes down and it's like a boot.
I obviously knew that coffee came from beans, but I never gave much thought as to what a coffee plant looked like. It turns out they sprout some really beautiful flowers that eventually produce the coffee beans that we use.
So the coffee plants flourish in a sort of a shade situation. When they get older, they can withstand more sun, but this is how they kick off. This tree you're gonna see a lot of is called a soursop, and I'll point one out to you. A fruit. This leaf is very good. You take some of these home with you. You make a tea out of that tonight, and you'll tell me how good you sleep.
Okay.
That's the dwarf coconut that I planted. Now they're starting to sprout here, and these guys, they're papayas, and they're a wild form of papaya, like berries that form out here. They're carried by the bird shit. They carry the seeds, so they make these nice little papayas, nice and orange.
Fruta bomba.
Yeah, kind of like the Hawaiian one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. See? The same soursop. I still have a lot of them.
You grow any acerola out here? The acerola berries?
No, I don't have any acerola. I think I have one.
It's one of my favorite kind of juices to get down here. Acerola berries are really cherries, and they come from further down in the Caribbean, from the island of Barbados, but they grow very well in Puerto Rico. And they're extremely rich in antioxidants, and they give you a lot of energy when you make them into a juice. I like them better than acai berries.
This is a mango,
Oh, wow.
and it's a bigger mango variety, and it's also flowering. So we got avocados, coffees. Look at how nice this one is.
Oh, wow. That one's really blooming.
Can you hear the bee? The bees there?
Yeah, slightly.
The bees here are all wild.
This.
Here, you can clean that off and eat it, and then you'll see the coffee is a berry,
Yeah.
and inside is the fruit, but that berry is sweet. So you see how coffee, if you take off the skin, you pick coffee when it's green.
So that's the
coffee bean.
That's the bean.
Yeah, but you take out that pulp and the skin,
Mm-hmm.
and then you dry it off,
Mhm.
and then there's like a little fiber left to it. If you let it dry in the sun with all the pulp, then the bean absorbs the sugars as much as possible. So if you take the time to dry off the coffee in the sun, and it takes a long time because sometimes it's not a sunny day.
Right.
So it takes like maybe a month drying this stuff off. Then you have to peel off that old skin, plus the membrane around the bean. Then you have a green bean that you can roast. I'll show you some stuff like that from what I got in the back of the... I wonder where Nan is. The old time guy.
It turns out Nan was a man in his 80s who's working on the coffee farm, and he's been working coffee farms his entire life. He said he's not ready to retire yet, but he is thinking about slowing down soon. So I grabbed a bag of Vigoro, which is a plant food, and Gustavo and I got to work.
And they're kind of darkish, so we take off the darkish leaves because the plant's still feeding this leaf, but this leaf is like no good.
Yeah, just wasting
energy.
water.
So this one, same thing. These, good. This one could soon go. So over here, we drop like a little cup of Vigoro around here like this. Spread it out, and then it'll help it nab a little bit more food.
So we visited a few dozen plants along the farm, and Gustavo would use his machete to soften up the soil, and I'd come behind him, dumping a cup or so of Vigoro on the plants to help them grow and maintain energy. So after a couple hours of actual farm work, we headed back up toward the house to take a water break and also check on how things were going with the preparation of our lunch. All right, taking a little water break. Gustavo and I have been climbing up and down those hills and valleys back behind me for the last couple hours. Just pruning, adding some plant food to the dwarf coconut plants, and just checking out some of the coffee plants as well. During the break, I spotted a hammock, and I never pass up the opportunity to lay down in a hammock. So Gustavo brought in a chef friend of his to prepare a special soup for us, which main ingredient was chicken. And it turns out the chicken going in the soup was coming right there from his farm. Now, before anybody gets upset, no, this chicken isn't dead yet, and I did not video its final moments. But I can tell you that these locals are very respectful about what Mother Earth gives them. They only kill what they plan to eat, and they kill humanely. So after the deed was done, Gustavo walked back up to the house to deliver the main course to Chef Natalie, who was busy preparing our soup for lunch. So while Gustavo was checking with the chef to make sure she had everything she needed, I couldn't help but notice how wonderful the aroma in the house was already, even before the chicken was added. All right, stew's on, smelling good. Okay, Natalie, the producto finished product.
Ah, bueno. Eso es
Terminado, sí.
Terminado.
El producto terminado.
terminado.
Es pollo con chaco, se dice.
Caldo. Sopa Sancocho.
Sancocho. Okay, yeah. See, I can't pronounce anything because I forget. So this is like how it gets served. You got the chicken.
Este sancocho de gallina a lo colombiano.
Sí, Colombiana. It's Colombian stew, basically, the Colombian soup. And yeah, so here is how it's served. And I'm short on plates here at the farm, so I'm eating out of a pan. But anyway, it smells amazing. So you kind of have like this like broth stuff, and then this has all the fixings in it, and then you add your chicken. You'll take a piece of chicken here, basically like this, and then in the Colombian style, you take a lime, squeeze it into the soup for flavor. So we're gonna find out. Looks good. It smells great. So we had built up quite an appetite working on the farm all afternoon. Between the presentation and the final product and the taste, it was absolutely magnificent. All right, so there you have it. Spent the day at Gustavo's Coffee and coconut farm in Morovis in the mountains of Puerto Rico, and had a great day, great food, learned a lot about raising coffee and coconuts, and a little bit about chickens. More than I wanted to know about chickens, but that's okay. Had a good time. Thanks. So after a long day, it was time to head back to the marina, do some laundry, and sit down and relax with an ice cold beer. We hope that you enjoyed this departure from the normal swashbuckling tales of the high seas. But if you like the content that we put out, please consider liking and subscribing to help us grow our channel. And remember, it's always more fun to be a pirate than to join the Navy.